All right, welcome back to another episode of the Raw Intuition Health Show. Great to see everybody here already. It's going to be a great show for you guys today. We've got Samantha Salmon here joining us, and she is somebody that I've been inspired by for many years now. We connected, I don't even know how many years ago it was, but we connected. She had me on one of her summits, and so I appreciated that. And so, yeah, she is. Let me pull up her
2021 was the year.
2021.
Yeah,
Yes, yeah.
yeah,
So time flies.
yeah.
So, so Samantha is a certified brain optimization coach who helps busy professionals optimize their brain health. She's also the former owner of Earth's Healing Cafe in Chicago, Illinois, creator of the Raw Food Health Empowerment podcast, and author of the book You Can Afford to Be Healthy. I've got the links to all that down in the description box below. So if you want to check out her book, I got that link down there for you. Samantha has her own inspiring health journey story and motivation from family, and I'll let her share a little bit more about that when we get started here. And this all led her to where she is today. She's now on a mission to help improve people's health and lives so they can enjoy disease-free lives into old age. So thank you, Samantha. Let's get her in here. What's up? How are you, Samantha?
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
All right. Well, thank you. We appreciate you sharing your time with us. And guys, as always, at the end of each show, we do the Q&A. And so I will be giving away, actually, I got a special gift to give away today for you guys. In addition to the ebook. So any of my ebooks, whoever wins will get to choose any of my ebooks that they would like for free. And then I'm also giving away a free bottle of Daily Green Boost. So if you are interested in Daily Green Boost, it's barley grass juice powder. You can win a free bottle of that if you would like it. And so I'll have a discount code to give you if you're the winner. And then also, Samantha has a free gift that you guys can access too. Samantha, do you want to share that with them?
Yes, on rawfoodmealplanner.com, there's the Healthy Digestion Recipe Book, which you can download right on the main page of the website. Also on the site, we have a full year of free raw meal plans, a full year of high raw vegan meal plans for those who aren't yet familiar with the lifestyle. You may be asking yourself, what does that look like? What do I eat? And so all of those resources are there at rawfoodmealplanner.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And again, guys, the link is in the description box down below for that as well. Okay, well, guys, today the topic is how and why to be a health leader for your family and your community. I think a lot of people want the world that we live in to change. I think there's a lot of ways we can improve the world we live in, and most people want that. But a lot of times they don't think that they have any power to make that happen, right? And so people feel powerless in kind of to make a change in the world. But what they need to realize is that changing themselves is the first step to changing the world at large. And so if we can take responsibility for our own health, our own choices, our own lives, then we can have a profound effect on the world around us, on the people around us, and we can definitely make some very big changes just by starting with ourselves. And so Samantha is very passionate about this topic, and so we're going to talk about ways that we can be health leaders for our family and our communities, and how that can be so powerful. So, Samantha, do you want to kind of kick us off with your first thought on how we can do this? Oh, actually, sorry.
Yeah.
Do you want to first give the viewers a background of yourself and kind of how you got to where you are today and kind of the journey that you've been on?
Yeah, sure. So, I guess it all started way back when, right? So I grew up in Queens, New York. I'm first generation Jamaican American. I grew up with my mom and dad. I have an older brother, and I also lived with my grandmother. My grandmother was basically with me my entire childhood, right? And I spent actually more time with her than my parents because my parents owned businesses, they were busy, working all the time, and, my grandma had was I remember she was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. She didn't always have it, like, my entire childhood. There was a point where she was diagnosed. She started taking medication and medication for the side effects of those medications to the point where she was taking, like, 17, 19, 20 pills a day, right?
Oh,
And because she had type 2 diabetes, she also had the co-conditions, high blood pressure, thyroid issues, all of that. And so she went from being mobile, like we in Queens, we have levels, right? You have basement, upstairs, and she was able to do all of that. But after taking all these meds, she could no longer do that. Her body swole up, right? She got into an obese state, clearly obese. Um, and was pretty much sedentary. And, everything basically revolved around her type 2 diabetes, like how we ate in the home, all changed, once she had this diagnosis and my mom met with the dietitian on like how to feed her, right? So since my mom was busy working, it's a little different to like cuz I coach and I talk to people and they're like, "Oh, I can't eat clean because my husband doesn't eat this and my kids don't eat this." And I'm like, "When did the kitchen become a restaurant?" Back in my day, my mother was not, she wasn't offering a menu to folks. It was like, this is what I made and this is what we're going to eat,
yeah,
So
yeah.
everybody basically went on a dietary change because of grandma's diagnosis. And she had to eat at certain times to take the medications at certain times. So, like, we had to make arrangements who was going to stay home. And so, because of that, even in my teen years, I didn't do a lot of going out with friends and stuff like that because someone had to be home to make sure grandma got her pills on time and all that. Um, so fast forward now, like she was on pills for a really long time. We were managing the diabetes. And then she had to start getting the long insulin shots into her stomach because the pills were no longer doing enough. The shots only lasted about like a few months. Then we noticed her big toe turn black, and 2 weeks from then, she was home on hospice care,
Mm,
right? Which pretty much means the doctors are done. They say there's nothing more that they can do. And she was home in our living room on a gurney, slowly dying. So my early years was watching her be pricked and prodded with needles, blood sugar testing, plus with her diagnosis. We were constantly calling 911, firefighters in our home, bringing her down the stairs. And I mean, it was a lot for them too. It'd be like 4 or 5 very muscular guys trying to bring this woman down the stairs till eventually we installed a chair, you know. It was a lot. It was a lot. Home
mm,
health aides, all this stuff, right? But the it was a really traumatic time, like her death was really traumatic, but what I learned in that moment is that food is not worth this because I knew food was linked to diabetes, right? Because we always called it in the past sugar diabetes, So
yeah.
in my head, it's like, I know it's food related. I just didn't know what we could have done different at the time because we were basically following doctor's orders, dietitian's orders, right? That was 2004 she passed. That was like my first year of college. I remember I was trying to go through midterms and she's in the living room wailing in pain because even though she's on hospice and they give you stuff to make you feel as comfortable as possible. Like she had a catheter hooked up to her that was burning her tremendously. It was just
Mm,
really painful. Um and I graduated college 4 years later. moved to the Bay Area. Well, I got married, then graduated, moved to the Bay Area with my husband. And he was the first one that basically said, because I made him a chicken dinner. This was my first time actually making him a meal. So I made him honey glazed chicken like my mom used to make that I liked, right? So this
Mhm.
was me trying to show love to my husband and do like what I felt was the wifey thing. And this was, I guess, in my head at that time, because that's how I saw my mom operate. Um, I decided to make him this dinner, and I spent a lot of time on it because as a young person, I was not a cook. Okay. I was a baker. I know how to read directions and follow directions. But this thing, and my mom is Jamaican, so she cooks by the spirit, right? There is no recipe. It's a little bit of this and a little bit of that. So it took hours to get this thing done. And I turn around to him, I'm like, honey, dinner's ready. And he's like, I'm not eating meat. And I'm like, what you mean? Start that vegan stuff tomorrow? I just took hours to make this. What are you talking about? But it started a whole conversation. He showed me some videos. There was one video in particular of a professor, a researcher, who was saying things that made logical sense to my brain about the reason why humans are having the diseases that they're having is because we're not eating the foods we need to be eating. We're eating flesh and we're not carnivores. We don't have the teeth for it. We don't have the intestines for it. We don't even have, uh, the proper digestive enzymes to digest raw flesh, blood, and all this, that made sense to me because even the core curriculum at my school, I went to NYU, I had a human genetics professor, right? Who even to this day, like I remember some of the stuff he said, but one in particular, he was talking about a tribe that ate humans, right? They
Hmm.
ate humans. And that's how they found out in science that humans cannot eat other humans, right? Because it makes us sick. The blood itself, right, makes us sick. It's toxic to us over time. What we know now from science is all animal protein, not just human flesh, right? All animal protein is toxic to us and is what's being discussed now is that it's even triggering autoimmunity. And it makes sense because what's autoimmunity? The cells are fighting itself, but it's actually mimicking that other animal flesh and its cells is very similar to our own. And we know this. Why? Scientific research that tells us, that gives us enough confidence to start testing on humans. We start with animals, right? Because we think and feel and know in science it's so comparable to our own,
Mhm.
right? So because we are in this paradigm where we're not eating our species specific diet, it's basically causing all these issues. So anyway, this guy said this at this time, 2008, and it made a ton of sense to me. And then I didn't change my diet yet. It just made sense. And I was
Mm.
like, okay. But I saw it in the library because I love books. I love the library. And I found Dr. Neil Barnard's book on reversing diabetes. And that title really stood out to me. So I read it. And that book took me on a whole emotional journey
Mm.
because I went from being sad to mad
Yeah.
to like disappointed in the medical system because I'm like, when was this book written? When did they do the research? How come we weren't told? Like, we literally were catering to my grandmother's every need. It wasn't a situation where, like, how doctors talk about, oh, we don't tell folks to eat this way because they're not going to do it. Like, my grandma wasn't in control of her diet. We were, and we definitely would have done it because we wanted her to stay.
Yeah.
She was the glue, right? She had 8 kids and 19 grandchildren at the time of her death. She was the glue holding us all together. She at the time of her death, my mom told me she had to give her permission to let go because she wanted to live and we
Mhm.
wanted her to live. So I was really upset in my feelings. And I know for folks who know me from my early coaching days, that definitely came out,
Mhm.
it's like, this is injustice.
Yeah.
But then I also was motivated and I decided to change my diet. I was vegetarian for like 2 weeks because I wasn't really much into, I was always like not into fish because in Jamaican cuisine, they keep the head on. So I remember from like growing up. It's like you see the whole fish with the head and the eyes, and I'm like, how are you gonna eat something that's looking at you? Like it just does not feel good. And then many times I witness people end up with a fish bone in their, stuck in their throat and stuff.
Mm,
And it's like, yo, when this stop you from eating fish? But no, they love it even more. And it's like, I don't get it. So anyway, that wasn't an issue for me. Mozzarella cheese though on pizza, like Italian cuisine. As a child, I used to always say, I wish I could live in the Olive Garden because I would just eat all day.
yeah.
Um, but going vegan cleared up so many things for me. I used to get seasonal allergies 4 times a year. Didn't have that issue. I used to have regular colds, didn't have that issue. And, dealing with that was disgusting, but it was normal. Everybody goes through that. But once I didn't have that anymore, it's like my mind quickly made the connection to cheese to and mucus. And so like even when I see the commercials, I'm disgusted.
Yeah.
So it was a quick thing for me. And the reason why I underscore some of these things too is like I find that people will have an intention. And that's where this topic really came from. Because I talk to a lot of people, they're like, I'm not plant based, but I want my family to be plant based. If they were plant based, I would be plant based. How can you help me make my family plant based?
Yeah.
And it's like, this would be my first tip is like what you said. It starts with you. You have to lead by example, right? And I underscore some of these things because I understand the struggle. When I started, I was newly married. So when you're in this love thing, right? There's something special about that. Because not only did I go vegan in this time, I also learned a new language in this time,
Mm,
right? And I got really good really fast. Whereas now, 16 years into my marriage, trying to learn get better in this language to learn more words, it's taking me a lot longer. It's a lot harder. And there's something chemically going on in the brain. It's this stage where in therapy and psychology they call it limerence, right? Where you're in this love honeymoon phase, and like your body and brain is literally different. And so change is not hard. And then your partner, right? We're in lockstep with each other on this lifestyle, very much so. And I was living in Oakland, California, walking distance from Whole Foods, walking distance from Trader Joe's. So I had the environment. I didn't have a long commute in New York when I was going to school. My commute to school was an hour and a half in the morning, 2 hours coming back. Now in Oakland, it's a 10-minute bus ride, and I could walk if I want to, and the weather is beautiful all the time. And so the environment really allowed me to thrive. So I was feeling good on all levels, and I didn't have a lot of the challenges that a lot of people have. On top of that, I highlight also my mindset, right? Understanding that the body is not our bodies. Human bodies are not carnivores. So flesh is not for us, right?
yeah.
If unless we could eat it raw, and we're not running after a lion to gnaw into its flesh, it's not palatable to us to eat flesh with fur and like taste raw blood, right? We don't even do that with chicken. We have to change how it looks. We have to take all the hair out. We have to cook it down, drain the blood, do all this stuff in order for it to even, and then we douse it in sauce. Like no one's eating chicken without any seasoning, right? We have to douse it in all this stuff just for it to be palatable. Whereas grapes, oranges, mangoes, bananas, coconut, they're just good the way they are. And so, and the fact that our eyes see color, carnivores do not see color, right? This is for a reason, right? Because it's our species specific diet. But yeah, we need to that's my story. And the first point is we got to lead by example. It's not easy, but when you start to have some more realistic thinking about things, we've been indoctrinated to think about things a certain way. I grew up on McDonald's, okay?
Hmm.
Happy Meal meant I got toys.
Yeah,
Okay. That was
exactly.
most of my toys came from McDonald's, right? And that was like a bonding moment for my dad and I. That's we spent our time Saturdays. I did dance class and then he would take me to McDonald's. That's why I was chubby. Even though I was in dance class, I was a chubby child. I was
Hmm.
fighting fat my entire youth because I was raised on McDonald's. Um, but I understand that chicken isn't even chicken. Who knows what it is, and even chicken nowadays is not my grandmother's or great grandmother's chicken. This stuff has hormones and all sorts of chemicals in it, plus they're putting salt, so we're having a lot of high blood pressure running rampant in our communities. And people aren't pointing to this. Yes, folks are eating a lot of processed food, but even if you took that out, you're still getting high salt consumption from this, right? um so yeah, let me stop talking so much, but
No, that was great. I love that. That was so many great points. And your story. First off, I'm very sorry about what your grandma went through, and what your family went through with that. It's never easy to see a loved one go through something like that. And so, but you have used that unfortunate circumstance to, change your life in a positive way, and now you're using that to change other people's lives in a positive way. So, um, that kind of feeds into my first one, which is, right right in step with what you just said. It's the positive ripple effect that can take place when you do take responsibility for yourself, and you do, take accountability for the actions and the diet that you choose for yourself. You look at, um, any like professional athletes. In so many instances, a professional athlete, their children end up being professional athletes when they grow up. Many doctors, their children grow up to be doctors. You look at the Esselstyns, the McDougalls, the, T. Colin Campbell's family, um, the Essers. There's so many families. Once somebody takes charge and decides for themselves that they're going to be that health leader, and they're going to set the standard and set the example for everybody else, it creates a standard for the family, as well as the community. The people that are, the community around whoever is doing this, they start to pick up on that inspiration. They start to see the positive aspects of what this person is doing. And you look at how many people's lives have changed, not only within, those few examples that I gave, their families, but also all the lives they have touched, and really changed the world in a big way, just because, again, that one person in that family decided they were going to change the way they were living, and start, you know, following what works, and not going along with, the society as a whole. So people like Samantha out there, who saw, what is happening to people, and how it's not necessary, and she decided to make this change. So now she is impacting so many people, and it's that ripple effect. So we don't even know how many people beyond us that are seeing the things we're doing and are being inspired, how many people they're going to affect, and really just, it's endless. It's endless on a level that we don't even probably understand. And so that alone should be motivating enough to, like Samantha said, there's people that, if their family isn't doing it, they feel like they can't do it. But to reinforce that, what Samantha said is that you have to just take charge. You have to take that responsibility, and understand the power that is within that choice to change the way that you're living. And it doesn't have to be overnight, right? Just take small steps to get, see what is working for people. And, there's plenty of science out there now to show, even beyond, you know, what Samantha shared, all of our anatomy and physiologic characteristics that show that we are not carnivores. We are not meat eaters. We are true plant eaters, and so you know there's plenty of science to support that. And I mean, really, just our observation. Just if you take a step back, it should be common sense. As Samantha said, we don't eat anything without taking the hair off it, plucking the feathers off it, cutting it into little bits and pieces, and really making it look like fruit, right? If you really think about it, a lot of these things actually look like fruit. Like a sausage could look like a cucumber or a banana. It's in that long cylindrical shape.
Yeah.
Like pork chops, or that could be like a mango, or something. And they have to add chemicals to make them brightly colored, because flesh does not stay brightly colored. They
Right.
have to put chemicals in there to keep the meat bright red, and to keep the chicken to not go gray, right? So all of these animal products that we see on the shelves, they have been manipulated in so many ways to make them appealing to us. Where fruit, everybody loves the taste of fruit, right? And people think, oh, there's too much sugar in fruit. We're meant to consume fruit from or sugar from fruit, right? That is like the perfect fuel for us. Fruits and vegetables have the perfect macronutrient composition, have all the vitamins, the minerals, the enzymes, the hydration, all these things that are, required for the optimal function of the human body. And so, it goes without question that these are the foods we are meant to eat. And once you are convinced of that through your own research, through following people like Samantha, you will see that's the goal right there. And so whatever you can do to start taking steps to get towards that and to reach that point, um, you know, any amount of effort you put into doing that is going to be a positive benefit on yourself and on others, your family, your community, the people that you're connected with. And so it really just comes down to taking that responsibility, believing in yourself, and understanding that the potential for you, if you're somebody out there that really wants to change the world, like we said, you got to start with yourself, and then see that bigger picture of how infinite the impact can be, by not only just on you, your family, your community, and really it can just, especially with the internet now, it can reach the world. So there's a lot of power in our hands. And so if you are just like on the fence about, oh, my family won't do this, take charge, and you'll be pleasantly surprised, I think, at the positive things that you see in your life, and those around you. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes. When we are living in a time where we have a huge obesity crisis, most people are dying from preventable chronic disease.
Yeah.
Now is not the time to be a follower, right? We need to step up into leadership. And I know in my family in particular, like I mentioned earlier, just one side, we're a huge family. I didn't even mention my dad's side, right? But we're having a lot of death even now in my family. We are grieving the loss of my cousin who died at 51,
Mm.
right? And then I had another cousin die at 41. And parents should not be burying their kids. And no, they didn't die from COVID, right? They didn't. So one had basically a pulmonary embolism. The other one, sleep apnea, which was triggered by things we know that you're not supposed to do when you have sleep apnea, right? So in my head, I'm like, okay, these things could have been prevented. And yes, there's a lot that could happen, to take us out, right? I could walk out into the street right after this interview and get hit by a bus, right? And that would be the end. My whole thing is quality of life and doing the best we can to stick around, because you bring kids in the world, those kids need you. Okay.
Yep.
It doesn't matter how old they are, they need you. The impact of my grandmother's death on my family was so colossal that even 20 years later, not only am I still talking about it because of the work that I do, but the impact on the family is still being felt and seen. right? So, and I know folks understand that because, from my book, folks who've read my book, they say they totally see themselves in my story because my story is their story. They've experienced it in their family as well. We don't need to continue this cycle, right? We talk a lot about generational wealth building. We need to be focusing on the legacy of health because when you don't have your health, guess what happens to your wealth? Because that's what we're seeing in our family. My grandmother came over to this country as an immigrant, right? She struggled. She worked really hard. And one of the things she passed on was great money management,
Mm,
right? So she helped her kids um, buy homes through really strategic financial movements, right? And so the children are doing well. They have big homes, lots of cars, but then the kids are dying at 41 and 51. How does this make sense?
mhm.
We need, like, wealth is important, but health, if you don't have your health, you have nothing. And even the folks that are still alive, that quality of life, right? Not being like not having your whole life revolve around doctor's visits, right? Taking care of our kidneys, taking care of our cardiovascular system. This is super important. And I know for all of you watching and listening, you're leaning in for a reason. So if you feel any kind of nervousness about stepping up, because that's what comes up a lot, they feel like, if I talk about plant-based eating, it's like talking about religion or politics, it's an argument. And I say, if it has to be an argument, let it be an argument, right? The only reason it would trigger that level of passion is because you love your family members and make sure they
Yeah.
know that. Love on them, but don't hold back, and don't give in because folks are giving in. Like, we have this whole culture of like showing love with food. Like I mentioned, I'm not exceptional to this. I was doing the same thing, right? I watched my mother do it. I was trying to do that with my husband as well in the beginning. And but if you know something is no good, right? If you have family members who are obese and having health issues, don't buy them refined sugar and dairy products, right? Because, oh, they'll like this thing. Yeah, they may like it. Alcoholics like alcohol, but it's no good, right? It messes with their brain. It turns them into different humans, right?
Yeah.
So you need to step up into leadership. You can show love in many different ways, but don't enforce unhealthy behavior. Don't enforce unhealthy addiction, because that's what we have here when we're not eating actual food, right? Because no one's getting addicted to avocado, which is fat, celery, which is salt, sodium, right? Or
Yeah.
mango, which is sweet, right? No one's getting uh, fat, salt, and sugar. They say, oh, it's addictive. Yeah. When it's chemicals, when it's non-food stuff, right? This
Yeah.
stuff isn't food. And that's why you're addicted. It's chemicals, just like drugs, which have the likelihood of addiction, right? They have that consequence of addiction. Chemicals that affect the brain that trigger that addiction pathway, right? You don't want to reinforce that. When folks are addicted to something, yes, they love it. Yes, they want it, but that doesn't mean you have to give it to them if you see that it is leading to their demise. This is what I mean by stepping up into leadership. It's not just about you, but the choices you make for the folks around you, how you operate, and how you maneuver too, because there is a level of influence that's needed in this whole thing as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, as I kind of I was actually going to mention this and I forgot to, but the same way that we can have that positive influence when we decide to make that choice, and like the doctors who their children and the athletes, the same way that they make positive decisions that trickle down to their children and their families, it works the exact same way the other way too. So it works with, if you choose a positive healthy diet and lifestyle for yourself, that will most likely influence your children to have positive healthy lifestyle choices. But if you continue on the standard American diet and you know making poor dietary and lifestyle choices for yourself, the impact that that has on your family and people around you as well, because the people we spend time around, we influence each other. And so the more you commit unhealthy choices, whether it be dietary or lifestyle, that is being imparted onto your children, onto your family members, onto your community. So there's a lot of power in every decision that we make every single day. And so making sure that we, if you truly care, then you should start making the best decisions you can for yourself, because it's not only affecting you, it's affecting so many other people, whether you do, positive things or, the opposite. So,
Right. And what you're touching on too is epigenetics.
right.
Because especially for women, I mean, it goes the same for men, right? How you eat is affecting your hormones. It's affecting how your brain is functioning, and which will then affect your sperm and the quality of your sperm. But also for women, because we're born with all the eggs we'll ever have, our lifestyle, the toxins that we take in, put on our skin, what we consume, right, is affecting our eggs. And we pass on things, even if it doesn't manifest in us, it can manifest in our kids. And what we're seeing is that even some of these addictions, if we don't take care of it now, the third and fourth generation will be struggling with this. So you're in a
Mhm.
position now, because you could be carrying stuff um from your ancestors, right? It may not
Yeah.
even be yours, but because they didn't resolve it, right? Now it's on you to resolve it, or else you just keep passing it on. This goes for when we talk about things like traumas and negative thought patterns that could be triggering unhealthy food addiction or other unhealthy addictions, but also the quality of food, our whole lifestyle, because it's the chemicals that we even use to clean our sheets,
Yeah.
and like the bedding, all this stuff, because it's everywhere. Like one of the major changes I made in the beginning of my journey, because I didn't start as a animal activist vegan. I started
Hmm.
as health first, right?
Me
Like
too.
I'm the animal I care about, right?
Yes.
Me, I'm not trying to suffer and be a human pincushion like I watched my grandmother deal with. And that's in and out of the hospital, right? Some of the things I've seen in the hospital, it's like, good luck getting me there,
Mm.
honestly. Um, but I saw earthlings pretty early on. And that, when I say scared, shook it. I'm
Mhm.
like, oh my God, I had no idea.
Yeah.
But the big thing was the 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 click in my mind watching how leather was made. So like before I got to this point, when I was in Queens, New York still, I bought 3 beautiful, beautiful leather jackets, and they were have it had a there was a great deal on Jamaica Ave. For folks of you who are familiar with Queens, New York, Jamaica Ave, at that time, at least, I'm not sure now, was the place to shop. You could get deals, and they had this, like, I don't know if it was 30%, 50% off on these just gorgeous designer leather coats, right? And it was a big buy for me because I spent hundreds of dollars. I was still a college student, but I felt like I up leveled in a major way with these coats, right? And so now I'm in the Bay Area and I see earthlings and they're explaining how, leather comes from the animal. Okay, understand.
Yeah.
Um, but it's flesh. So they have to clean the blood off, but that's not enough because it's still dead flesh. They have to dip it in formaldehyde because obviously, if you're wearing flesh, it's going to decay, it's going to smell. I never put two and two together in my head before. Like, I knew, of course, leather is from an animal, but I never thought about the processing.
Yeah.
Formaldehyde is toxic. Okay. So now you're talking about a toxic chemical I put on my body. These are leather jackets. You wear it in cold weather, right? So your body gets warm wearing these coats. What happens when your body gets warm? Your pores open up. Okay. Furniture, clothes, all these things, they off gas chemicals.
Yep.
So if I'm hot, my pores open up. I'm wearing formaldehyde right on my skin. What's happening with my body now? I'm absorbing chemicals, right? And some of these chemicals actually could penetrate the blood brain barrier. Some of the things that we think are just people's personality is the brain being affected by, it could be the foods that we're eating, toxicity, hormonal imbalance, thyroid dysfunction, lots of things, right? Folks are getting diagnosed with bipolar disorder, what turns out they just have a thyroid imbalance, right? We have a lot of this stuff going on. And that was just like a huge aha moment for me. Like, I was like, oh man, I cannot do these jackets anymore. I had a whole little morning in my head over it really quickly. And then I donated, I ended up donating hundreds of dollars in these jackets. But it's like, the animal already died, but I cannot wear these chemicals on my skin anymore because I can't, mentally, I just can't do it. So yeah, it's a whole lifestyle shift. And that would be my second point, right? You mentioned 3 points. That would be my
Yeah.
second point, is to educate yourself and others about why you do what you do, right? People may think that you're odd or strange because you're not following the masses, right? You're not following the mainstream. Why are you doing what you do? And share with them, which means you have to be fully convicted in why you're doing what you're doing. So that's educating yourself, right? On everything, right? Don't just jump into it. Some folks, even, they're like, oh, I have to be 100% raw vegan. That's great. Tell me why. If your why is because you see a whole bunch of people that you like and admire doing it, that is not enough. I will tell you right now, like, you will struggle being consistent if that is your why.
Yeah.
It has to be deeper. The only reason, like, because you hear on YouTube all the time, oh, I used to be raw, now I'm eating chicken. Like, how, Sway? Tell me how. Like, how does that work? Like, there couldn't be a medical diagnosis that could hit that would lead me to eat toxic animals. Like, it doesn't, like, it goes against science. And so if
Yeah.
you understand evidence-based nutrition, you wouldn't do that, right? So that's what it makes me question, how did you get into this? Why did you get into this? You have to educate yourself. And if you're being triggered by family members when they start to ask you some of these things, do some deep self-reflection and try to fortify yourself. Find other people so you can learn and tap in. So once you get confident in yourself, you can't be moved and swayed by other folks' opinions.
Yeah. That so many great points that you just covered there. It's so true. The education, I mean, that's the antidote to misinformation, and just I see it so often. These people they want to be healthy, they get into this lifestyle, but then there's so many troll comments and just strange comments that are made on videos, and some people, some content creators out there that have questionable motives. I think put out these videos that have no basis in reality, but it somehow convinces people because they are not educated. They have not taken the time to really look into the research, look into, I mean, really long-term result. It's one thing that I point out to people is like, look at if you just want to look at like doctors, like look at the groups of doctors that are promoting certain ways of eating, and look at the age ranges of these people, and the length of time that they've been practicing this way that they're telling people to eat. The doctors and the advocates in the whole food plant-based movement, we got T. Colin Campbell, he's like 94 or something. We got Caldwell Esselstyn, I think he's 90 or 91.
And still working.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, wow.
Right. I mean, I could list off like 10 doctors that promote a whole food plant-based diet that have been living this way for decades and decades, and they're doing very well. You look at like paleo, keto, it's all pretty much mostly all young doctors, like young people that are trying to make a living. They're trying to earn a paycheck. They're trying to bring in income. So not that alone is going to tell you that, just because they're young. I mean, we're young and we're promoting this, but it's like, you got to look at the whole picture. and the evidence, both the research and just like empirical evidence that you can, you can see these people are succeeding. And just look at the camps, look at the whole food plant-based, look at keto, and just kind of look at the outcomes that people are getting, and the history that they have with the way that they're promoting. If you do that, like when I've done that, it clearly shows that a whole food plant-based diet provides excellent longevity, vitality, a lack of chronic disease later in life. And so, that's just one thing that I use to, just kind of weed through some of the conflicting information out there. And yeah, but you made a great point, that if you're not educated, it's going to be very easy for you to get kind of swayed one way or the other. So do your best to just look at the research, and it's so much easier now than it used to be because we have PubMed. Anybody can go on PubMed and you can look up research on whatever you want. I love going on PubMed and just like looking up different topics and the research that's out there. So it's one way to kind of shield yourself from finding yourself being in a situation where you just don't know which way to go. So, yeah.
Yes, and I think also, like my big mentors, I have a good amount of mentors for different reasons, but when it comes to nutrition and the healing aspect of it, literally, you have folks like Dr. Baxter Montgomery who's using raw foods to pull people out of hospice. Okay,
Right.
they were sent to hospice and got discharged from hospice using raw foods. Brooke Goldner, reversing stage 4 kidney failure,
Yep.
lupus. I literally have people in my family on dialysis. I have people in my family who have died from lupus, right? So these are the types of things where I know from my personal experience with raw foods, um, the energy and vibrancy that I feel, how much easier it is to digest food, all of that stuff. I think experimentation is really critical here too, but also do intelligent experimentation, right? Because there are folks experimenting with keto and they have type 2 diabetes, and I'm like, whew, that is dangerous, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Um, although I feel like there's a healthy way to do keto. And there's this wonderful woman, I'm trying to find her, but I can't find her anywhere. She wrote a book about raw food keto, which is
Mm,
something I was following for a long time. How raw vegans are doing keto, how vegans are doing keto. But I feel like once you're in the plant-based kingdom, there's a lot of things you can do because not all of us are operating well high fruit, right? It really depends. I tell folks eat right for your chronotype, yes, but also for your brain type. Some
mm,
people do well with high sugar content. Some people do well with high fat content. Daniel McKinnon is one. He was on my last summit, the Thrive
mm,
Through Food Summit. He does a lot of like raw gourmet stuff. He says this is what's helped him stay consistently 100% raw.
mm,
I personally cannot go beyond a certain amount of fat. I literally get physical pain in my stomach. So
mm. Yeah.
that doesn't work for me, right? Which is why I do really well high raw because I can lean in on starches or get enough starches to feel satiated and fill up the rest of my day with raw foods. And it has to be a proper balance for me. That's why you have to experiment really to find how to eat for you to feel well. But these examples, these testimonials, I mean, are compelling. And these are not the only doctors using raw foods to heal. You hear more about this when you start going to conferences,
Yeah.
and they start showing slide after slide of people that they've worked with. And I've worked with folks and I see how quickly the fat drops. For me personally, yes, fat dropped. I didn't have obesity necessarily. I don't know that I was really tracking it, at the time. I don't think I ever really hit obesity. I got to the edge of my healthy weight range at 140 when I first went vegan. And since I told you I had always been chubby and I've been, running away from fat for a long time, like trying to keep it under control and release it, even with all the exercising and stuff, none of that really did anything. But leaning raw and then going 100% raw. That's what really did it. And I didn't have to do much thinking around it, right? Like I didn't have to make a whole lifestyle shift. It was just I'm just eating raw. And it was simple, and it was what was available and accessible. Um but having that personal experience, seeing what's happening to others, seeing what other folks are doing in the field, right? There's a lot of testimonials on YouTube, and you had mentioned something about the trolls. Oh my God. Dr. Baxter had mentioned, he has a center, Montgomery Health and Wellness Center. And on his channel, he has a lot of, testimonials of folks who have had really great reversals of cardiac events. He's a cardiologist. Um, Utilizing raw foods and doing like detox, basically. It's not like they've been raw for years, only for a short period of time. And it's like their whole body's fixed. And then you'll have the carnivore people in the comments like, oh, give her some meat or whatever. Like they'll say stupid stuff. And it's like, dude, you cannot produce these results. And you cannot have these results long term because we're watching you. The carnivore MD guy just switched up his diet now to include plant foods because he's realizing that his diet was sending his body in a quick decline.
Mm.
He's on record, and I have everything saved on my Facebook page, so I could go, because I'm like, these people are. It's dangerous when you're out here in the internet streets telling people to eat a certain way that's leading them to quick death. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
don't tell them to do a thing you haven't yet tried on yourself first to know that it works. Right? You don't have enough evidence. And now he's having this and now he's saying it, but what damage has he already done to people,
Yeah.
Um so yeah, you have to really be discerning.
You do. Yeah, I know. And that's again why I try and get people to realize the difference between the doctors and advocates of a whole food plant-based diet and compare the two. Like you'll see these people, these younger doctors and influencers that are telling you keto and paleo and carnivore are the best ways. If you come back in 10 years, I would bet half of them have stopped doing that way of living or that diet, and they're on to some other thing. It's so obvious to me, but obviously people got to figure that out for themselves. But yeah, I think the proof is in the durian. It just
Yeah.
you just gotta open your eyes to look at it objectively and just see. All right, well, I can definitely see there's tens of doctors at least that have been promoting this way of life that have lived well into their 90s, very healthy. They're still working. They're very cognitively sharp and active and things. So yeah, and that kind of leads me to my second one, which is doing this, being the health leader is also going to give you a chance to spend the most quality time with your family and enjoy your life, into old age. Because, it's one thing that I've heard many, many times is people will say, I'd rather just eat my burgers and steaks. And even if I don't live, a few years longer, that's fine. I just want to enjoy the way I eat, enjoy my life. And the problem with that is that, well, first of all, it's not that you just live a few short years less. If you live a few years less and you just one day you're gone, if you decide to go down that path, it's decades many times of suffering. So first of all, you're not just kicking off 5 years earlier. You are, one, suffering. Two, you're putting a lot of pressure on your family to take care of you a lot of times. And so that is very difficult for not just you, but your family as well. And then, there's so many other things that impacts, but that's the thing that I see the most is people say, I'd rather eat crappy now and just enjoy the way I eat and live, and I'll deal with the consequences later. But they forget that the last couple decades are going to be suffering, doctor's visits, in and out of the hospital, surgeries, procedures, all these things. And when it gets to that point, then almost every single time they will then want to change to a healthy diet and lifestyle. So when it's like they're at the very end point of where they're about to, be at the, point of no return, then they want to start eating fruits and vegetables and, improving their lifestyle. And so it just goes to show that when people say that they don't, they're not worried about losing a few years of their life due to poor dietary and lifestyle habits, they're not being honest, and they're not thinking clearly, because they're not thinking about what that whole situation is going to look like, because it will most likely result in several years of poor health that requires numerous doctor visits, surgeries, all the medications, pain, and very traumatic experiences for their family as well. And so that is one thing that I try to get across to people when they say something like that. It's like, I've seen it several times, and you don't want to go through that for yourself or for your family. So that would be one thing I would say. If you want to have as much quality time, if you want to, see your kids and your grandkids grow up and spend quality time with them, or just spend more time with your friends and your community, doing the things you love, you'll want to take care of yourself now. Take your health seriously, because it's the best. You give yourself the best chance at having a long, healthful, vibrant life, till the end. And it's just, again, so many people get to that point where they're like, oh, I wish I would have done something earlier, or they're like, oh, I'm just going to change now and hopefully I can extend my life and, get off some of these medications. Don't even let it get to that point. Just make the change, regardless if the people around you aren't going to do it with you. Start making positive choices and start, taking that responsibility seriously, because your future self will definitely, thank you for it.
Yes, those medications are not benign.
Right.
Every time we take those things, and supplements included,
Yeah.
not all supplements are benign. And our kidneys have to filter this and process it. It is affecting the brain. And we know this because of actual scans. We see how it's affecting the brain and not
Hmm.
always in a positive way. So even with pharmaceutical drugs, the doctors I admire and respect, they use them in a very targeted manner when needed in an acute fashion, and wean folks off and get them on a lifestyle program, because ultimately you do better on meds and procedures with a healthy lifestyle and off. So ultimately, like at the end of the day, a healthy lifestyle is a non-negotiable. A healthy diet, healthy lifestyle is a non-negotiable. You are in a better position to have a quicker, faster recovery going through a health crisis if you have a healthy diet and a healthy lifestyle. Um, and I know you said 3 points, right? So
Yep.
I'm gonna
Cool.
merge two into one as my last.
Go for it.
Creating a supportive environment and be patient and compassionate, right? So you are stepping up into this healthy leader. Part of influence is magnetism. No one, including children, want to be told what to do. And I see in my own family, right? The kids definitely, right? If you tell the kids to eat their vegetables and they see you not eating vegetables, guess what they're going to do? Not eat vegetables.
Yeah.
We end up being like the people that took care of us, our older folks that we watch, right? And just like you had mentioned earlier, we're most like the 5 people we hang around with. Probably that has a lot to do with the mirror neurons and all that. We're very influential, right? In that way. And if you're growing up in a home where parents are doing a thing, the kids are going to end up doing that thing. So all the parents who have said to me, I want my kids to do blah, 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 but they're not doing that, you have to do some self-reflection. Look in the mirror, right? Kids don't have money, so they're not buying the processed food. If they're eating it, you're most likely buying it. So you need to figure out what to do there and lead in that, in that parent role. Um, There's a really great book that Dr. Daniel Amen just published called Raising Mentally Strong Kids. And I know you have
Hmm.
some great books too, Matt, to get
Thank you.
children acclimated to healthy, clean eating. I think both of these things work great together as a package because yes, there's a way to introduce children to healthy foods, right? At different stages of their lives, in different textures and colors, and just get them acclimated to that. Um, Also the parents stepping up into leadership and not letting the kids take control, um, is, I know it's a tough thing. I'm not a parent, right? But I know from hearing from folks that this is really tough and can wear on parents their own reserve and resiliency. So that's where I think Raising Mentally Strong Kids, that book by Dr. Daniel Amen and Charles Fay, um, would be really helpful with this, because you're setting the stage, you're setting the foundation. I remember growing up, like I said, I grew up in a large family, right? And my cousins were pretty much, they felt like my siblings. We spent so much time together. And most of us when we're kids, we love fruit, right? But I had one little cousin, his name is Justin, if he ever sees this, who loved vegetables. And I remember being young and being like, dude, you're so weird. Like, who likes green food? Because I hated all things green, right?
Yeah.
And look at me now, right? So people could change, right? But there was something that his mom clearly did right. She was the one. I remember being at her home one time and they had just moved to Tennessee, and I forget what age I was, like mid-teens or whatnot. And it was early morning and I was going into the pantry to pull out a bag of chips because that has always been my thing. I love salt, I love savory. I don't care for the sweet stuff, but give me some chips, right? And she railed on me like I was in so, what? You not eating chips before breakfast? I mean, she went in. Okay. She went in, she closed the door. I was really disappointed. I didn't even get to take one chip. And but this was a parent being a parent. Yes, I was mad. Just like I was mad when she took away my Little Kim CD that I had bought with my own allowance money, right? She took my CD, gave it to my dad. I never, even to this day, never got my CD back. I was tight, okay? But those were parents just being parents.
Hmm.
And what did it do? Well, whatever it was, I don't know what the Little Kim CD was supposed to do. But the chips thing basically kept me on the straight and narrow. I knew, okay, I can't start my day with chips. I got to start with a breakfast,
Yeah.
whatever that is. So it just set the foundation, right? Now for older adults, again, folks don't want to be told what to do. And I'll give you an example from my family. My cousin who passed away due to sleep apnea. She literally told her mom she would rather die than give up alcohol. Okay. That is the clear sign of an addiction. I know I've heard from other people who say something similar about chicken, about refined sugar, right? That's addiction.
Yep.
That didn't stop her parents from having alcohol. I mean, it's pretty normalized in families to drink alcohol, even there's no amount that's healthy. But I think part of this too has to do with our culture. We really need to get real about what these foods do in the body. And even calling it food is a misnomer,
Yeah.
which adds to the confusion. But, you know, part of this whole leadership thing is taking responsibility. Responsibility is not blaming the victim. It's we are adults. We are able to respond. As a child, you don't have much control with your environment, but as an adult, you have all the control, right? And so the way this situation could have gone differently is, okay, I see my daughter is struggling with an alcohol addiction. Obviously, if she would say something like that to her mother, I mean, that has to be heartbreaking to the mother, right? You would rather die, you would rather alcohol over than be here with me, um, which ultimately ended up happening. So, me as the mother, one, I wouldn't have alcohol in the home. I would stop drinking alcohol. I would have conversations with my daughter about how great I feel no longer having alcohol, just getting on that human to human, because now you're dealing with an adult. That type of like, um, of course you're still the parent, but this is an adult who's going to go out and do whatever. And yes, they're going to go out and do whatever. And yes, she could have still gone and drank alcohol and went to sleep without her CPAP and all that, right? It could have ended up the same. But at least you know you did all that you could do. And that's pretty much where we're at. It's like everyone is on their own health journey. So you have to save yourself first. You have to put your own mask on first, right?
Yep.
But we do have influence when we can connect to people on in a very empathetic manner, right? And so there's this whole structure I go through in my programs called relating, right? How do we build empathy and connection with family members so we can have harmonious relationships, right? Which then gives us happiness and joy, but also allows us a window of influence with other people. And it's connecting to them on that person to person level. As a mother daughter, I know in my dynamic with my mother, when I'm going through something and I tell my mom about it, she's like, "You're so much like me." And this makes sense. A lot of us are like our parents because that's how it works.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like biologically we're holding the cells, right? But
Yeah.
also um emotionally because of epigenetics, like their stress, like when my mom was pregnant with me, all the stress she was going through, that cortisol bathed me as a fetus and affected my body, right? And I'm dealing with things that she also dealt with because we have similar brains, we have similar bodies. I literally came out her body, right? We have a lot of evidence as to why this is. So when I talk to her about things and she says to me, "You're so much like me," and she tells me a story about what she did in a similar situation. She's not telling me what to do, right? Because I'm gonna forge my own path. But she's like, "Yeah, I understand, I had this thing and and it was tough for me and I did blah 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 blah." This is helpful. This I feel like honestly, back in the day, this is how families connected with each other and helped folks through hard times, Now
Yeah.
we have therapy and all sorts of other modalities that folks can tap in, but just in a family structure. I mean, this is how you build relationships, and it's through the relationship you can influence for the positive.
Yeah. That that's so true, and it's so funny. That's very similar to my third point as well.
Mm,
Because yeah, it's what I have found is that, and I agree with everything that you said. What I have found is that when people start to adopt healthier habits and start eating better, and they start getting in the vitamins and the minerals and the antioxidants and all these micronutrients and the hydration, and they clean up their gut. They stop putting in the junk ultra processed foods and flesh and all these things. Their mind gets so much clearer and works so much better, and that allows them to forge closer, more healthful relationships. I can't even tell you how many relationships I have seen destroyed by alcohol, processed foods, drugs, all these unhealthy lifestyle habits. And so when I see truly healthy people, they most always have just such good, wholesome relationships, especially like with their family. So it makes such a big difference when and like you said earlier, people think that the way someone acts is just like their default personality, when a lot of times it's their brain, their thyroid, their gut malfunctioning because they're not giving it the right nutrition and the right environment to thrive and to function how it's supposed to function. And so their behavior is altered because of the different synthetic chemicals and fragrances and food colorings and all these things, the formaldehyde and all the other chemicals in their bedding and their clothing and the air fresheners people use,
mm,
the soaps and
mhm,
shampoos, the toothpaste, all these things. The amount of toxic assault that we're all put under in our society today, it's overwhelming. But that is a big part of why there's so much mental, you know, dysfunction and relationship breakdown, because people's emotional state is so out of balance because of, you know, their body trying to, you know, um, regulate itself while defending itself through all these things. And so it's really messing people's mental state up, which breaks down the relationships in people's families, causes more fights, causes more drama. And so when you get onto a healthy lifestyle, and I have seen my mental state completely, it's like night and day what it used to be, especially my relationship with myself, which impacts my relationship with everybody around me. And so the fruits, the vegetables, the, you know, the whole plant foods are what really help to balance out somebody's biochemistry, their mental state, their emotional state, and that is what helps to bring families closer together, build those relationships, you know, have those dialogues, have those discussions where, you know, people probably wouldn't need as much therapy and therapists as they do today if they had better relationships in their families, and people, you know, better relationships with their parents, where, or their siblings, or anybody, that they could really help each other out in, you know, tough times. And so I think that was my third point, was that you know, taking charge of getting healthy and implementing a whole food plant based diet and just healthy lifestyle practices can really improve the state of the family unit, of your relationships with people in your community, with, you know, your friends and all this. And so that's just another reason why it's so vital, especially again today where so many people are isolated and, you know, spending more times in their homes than we ever have. It's just important to start working on improving our relationships again, and, you know, connecting with people on a better level, and starting with balancing out your biochemistry with plants.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was my third one. Do you have, before we get into the Q&A, do you have any final thoughts or reflections on anything?
No, the point you made about we would probably need less therapy, I thought that was interesting because I'm just thinking about like how colossal this situation is right now, you know?
Yeah.
Like if everyone on YouTube, which is not the whole world, but let's say I think there's a tipping point there. If everyone on YouTube saw this video and just went raw vegan overnight, would would we still need therapy? And I would still say yes
Yeah.
because of the endocrine disruptors still in our waterways, right? The
Yeah.
microplastics and stuff, which we do have attorney generals now, you know, filing lawsuits against PepsiCo and some of these big companies to get rid of this. Let's say they're successful in this, which this will take years, right? And even
Sure.
everyone going like raw vegan or high raw vegan overnight, that would take decades, if
Yeah.
not centuries. But we have the forever chemicals, which my understanding is like with women, menstruating women, we're detoxing these PFAS chemicals every month.
Yep.
However, because they're in the environment, they keep coming in, right? So how do you get rid of forever chemicals in the environment, which all of this stuff um, affects the brain? And then beyond that, your spirituality, there's a huge component there.
Yep.
um Negative thoughts, negative thought patterns, which we're all struggling with. And so what you said, um it had me thinking like this, like, okay, if we solved for nutrition and if we solved for chemicals in the environment, would some of the dragons or the demons that we have on our backs that tend to, you know, breathe fire on the emotional centers of our brain where we get triggered by certain things, right? Because we cannot erase history, although we do have some modalities that allow you to release, like get rid of the emotional charge with certain memories. Like I'm thinking EMDR, for
Mm.
example, um, which is a type of therapeutic treatment. So I feel like we're many generations away um, from needing therapy less than we do right now, like many generations away, because there's so much generational trauma, mindset work, and shifts beyond even the nutrition and environmental toxins. But I think it's a great, like what you said is not me, I just feel like that's a really interesting thing that you said, one I've never even jumped far ahead enough to think about. And so I thank you for allowing space to
Yeah.
think about it.
Yeah.
But we got to start somewhere and do the work. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So,
Yeah.
and it takes everybody and everyone to have a seat at the table to figure out how do we resolve this. But um it's really, yeah, interesting to think about.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, oh gosh, Adam Sudd, I know he's been involved in some research on addiction and using
Mhm.
plant-based diet to help people with addiction. Um, and yeah, so I know there's definitely some research going on in that realm about how it can impact that. Now, I agree with you. I don't think it would completely eliminate the need for all therapy. There's obviously various causes that could require somebody, or give reason for somebody to go that route. So, but yeah, I certainly think it would make a big impact. And
Absolutely.
yeah, so yeah, appreciate the conversation on that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, so let's jump into the Q&A. Before we do that, do you want to just share one more time where people can contact you or follow you if they want to get more information about what you're putting out there?
Yes, I my home is at rawfoodmealplanner.com. So we have lots of resources there, meal plans, recipes. I have lots of blogs. Raw Food Meal Planner was started back in 2012. I
Wow,
want to say 2012 or 2014, around there. Um, so there's lots there, and I have the healthy digestion recipe book and an upcoming training called Beat Stress Eating, where we
mm,
basically talk about this, the underlying brain systems involved that play a role in unhealthy food addiction and what we can do to overcome that, so we can actually step into that healthy identity that we're looking for.
very cool. Well, yeah, definitely. Do you have a? Did you say? Do you have a newsletter or anything?
I do send emails out. I don't have an official newsletter,
Oh,
but
okay,
yeah. Once you download the Healthy Digestion Recipe book, you will get notified when I do trainings and
perfect.
um any other things. Sometimes I like to share like new research that's come out that's relevant to what folks are interested in, which is typically around digestion, cancer, immunity, and things of that nature.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you again. That was a very nice discussion and a lot of great wisdom shared there. So I hope everybody enjoyed that. I'm sure they did. We've got some great comments in the chat box already. So let's move over into the Q&A room here and take some questions. I think some have already been put in. Again, guys, one person that asks a question today will have a chance to win one of my ebooks, your choice, and a free bottle of Daily Green Boost, as well as Samantha's is a healthy digestion ebook
Recipe book, yeah.
recipe book. All right,
Yeah.
cool.
Mhm.
All right, so yeah, let's get your questions in here. Let me go through the chat here and see if I can find anything that was put in. I did see one question from Judith. Where did that go? I know she asked about kind of like what you eat. I think she asked what cooked foods you eat.
Oh, okay,
Um,
yeah. Cook foods, quinoa. I buy sprouted. I buy a lot of this stuff sprouted just to save me time,
mm,
and it's better for my digestion, right? But I still cook them. Quinoa, lentils, yellow split peas, um, Chickpeas I eat, but I don't buy and cook because it's just too much. Like
Mm.
anything I have to soak beforehand, I'm just too lazy to do it.
Yeah,
Honestly, which like I don't make too much raw gourmet on like I instead of making a raw vegan dessert, like gourmet dessert, like brownies and stuff. I'll do that once in a while, like once
yeah,
or twice a year. But instead of me doing that, it's so much easier for me to just throw almonds, and I get this like activated almonds that's so delicious. Let me tell you, it is like the best almonds ever. Okay.
nice.
And I can literally feel the difference in my esophagus with eating them, digesting them. It's like beyond, I don't want to say beyond organic because that has an understanding with certain people. It's organic, but there's something because I purchased from Thrive Market. They have organic and I'm pretty sure it's sprouted, organic sprouted almonds.
Mm,
And but this company, it's called Live, I think it's Living Foods. It's called activated almonds, right?
okay.
The When I eat this, like the organic almond for the from Thrive is like bitter and there's a little bit of irritation, right? And it's organic. These, the activated is just like everything goes down easy. It tastes so good, which is dangerous, right? Because too much fat, I physically feel pain. And with
Yeah,
this, because it's such an enjoyable eating experience, I don't know that I've gone over until it's too late and then my stomach starts hurting. But yeah, like to save myself time, I would just put those almonds in a dish with some raisins, and I'm just picking up raisins and that's like my little, dessert instead of me making a raw vegan brownie.
yeah,
And sometimes I like to make raw vegan ice creams. I have an ice cream maker, but if I'm too lazy for that, I just throw everything in a blender and make a smoothie. You know what I'm saying? Because
yep,
I'm lazy with it. Which was actually a really great pull to raw foods in the beginning. Like I said, I wasn't a cook. Okay.
yeah,
I felt cooking was dangerous. I watched so many people in my family, they love to cook. My uncle had a restaurant, a Jamaican restaurant, even here in Florida.
yeah,
And
cool.
folks, they burn themselves, they cut themselves. The kitchen is dangerous. But with raw foods, it's very safe, it's very quick, and it's very healthy. So, yeah, in terms of the cooked food, it tends to be just those starches. I don't really eat root vegetables, but the good thing about the flexibility of high raw is that if I end up in a situation where I'm at a family gathering, um, you know, I could be I could be somewhat flexible. You know what I'm saying? Like I
Yep,
don't at home, I don't cook with oil, but when I'm with my family and they cook with oil, that little bit of oil like is not going to do anything to me. I have to
right.
I just have to, kind of reorganize how I eat and what I eat for the whole day, taking that into the whole. But
Yep.
um, at least when I'm home most of the time, like my stuff is super, super clean. And yeah, the starches that I cook, I have a Ninja Foodie 9-in-1. So I just throw a cup in with some water and it's ready in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
you know, I got a tower garden where I have all my greens growing. So I just clip that, wash that, throw that down, put the beans on and whatever salad dressing I'm using. And, I may do something fancy like a recipe, or I may be lazy and just do apple cider vinegar with sea salt and chili powder. You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
Just
yeah,
grab what I have. Or right now I have balsamic that I'm running through. Because I like to throw that in there once in a while. So because I'm the type of person I'll just eat a thing and I get stuck on that thing and I'm doing that all the time. So I'm
yeah,
like, balsamic is how I switch it up.
yeah.
um, but yeah, that's pretty much it.
Nice. Cool. All right. Let's see. And Judith also said whole food plant-based doctors that have been mentioned, plus their children, eat cooked food. Yeah, I mean, I'm not one to say, I'm not one of these people in the raw community that say you have to eat 100% raw, because I don't either. I don't eat 100% raw, and so I don't think that 100% raw is necessary to live a long, healthy life. I think there's more than enough evidence to show that because yeah, everybody that I mentioned earlier, they're all just whole food plant based eaters. I personally
Mhm.
think a high percentage of raw is beneficial for everybody, but eating whole plant foods, whether they're cooked or they're raw, in general, they're going to be health promoting. So that's my opinion, anyways.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I think that you should be 100% raw if you feel vibrant on that lifestyle.
Yeah.
And you can make it work for you, right? And
Yep.
if you feel vibrant on the lifestyle and you can't make it work for you, that's when you need to work with a coach.
Yep.
And a lot of people like are confused, I think, about coaching because there's a lot of folks calling them a coach who haven't really gone through a certification process. Coaching is an actual like modality. It's
Yeah.
not teaching, it's not mentorship, it's not advising. It's literally like it's akin to therapy, except we don't spend too much time going back and digging into why and staying into that, past trauma, whatever. We just understand enough so we can move forward, right? And
Yeah.
so um some people, yes, if you thrive on raw and you feel great, right? You don't feel deprivation. Do that. And I explained to you why I don't, right?
Mhm.
Because for me, if I were to be 100% raw, it would really feel very light to me because I can't do the heavy. A lot of the proteins come with the fat. And once I hit over a certain amount, I have physical pain. So um with the starches, with the cooked starches, it allows me to feel satiated without feeling uncomfortable. And I don't have any scientific evidence um, to show that what I'm eating is not helpful or healthy for me. Actually, the opposite. They show legumes to be quite linked to longevity, healthy for the gut microbiome. And I rotate them, right? I have these different kinds that I rotate. Also, for me, it's all about balance. I can't have like, yes, if I have a whole big bowl of black beans with no greens, I feel like complete trash. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter if the beans don't have any oil. Like I said, I don't cook with the oil because the oil, even a tablespoon of oil now makes me not feel good. And this,
Mhm.
it wasn't always like this. It's like when you eat like this, your gut changes over time. And you find that things that you used to be able to eat, it's hard now. Like one of our like family excitements is Ethiopian food, right?
Mm.
Having a nice veggie combo Ethiopian, which I've loved, right? Since 2008, right?
Yeah.
And every Ethiopian spot, they do it different. And that's like, I'm a real foodie. Like, I love to go to these places and, like, oh, I'm tasting cardamom, I'm tasting clove, I'm tasting, I love that whole experience, right? And
Yep.
talking about it and all that. But I admit, like, I feel every year I feel worse and worse. And I'm having it less and less, and I'm feeling worse and worse. And it has to do with um where my gut's at. Because the cleaner you eat when you have these things, it's just your body's a little bit more sensitive to it. It's just letting you know quicker, hey, you may want to slow down on this. But it's
Yeah.
just like, and you figure out what works for you and what's right for you. There's a lot of people at one point in time with this whole raw is law mentality, and it's like it goes against the concept of bio individuality. Each
Mm.
of our guts is as unique as our fingerprint, and because the gut affects the brain so much, I would say there's no such thing as neurotypical,
Mm.
right? Because of that. That's in my opinion, right? According to the science.
Yeah.
That's my deduction. And so in which case, for our brains, for our guts, we should be eating somewhat unique for us. What those dials are on your macros are going to be somewhat unique for you based off of what makes you feel the best, what makes your brain work the best, right? Especially the type of work that you're doing. If you are really active, like a construction worker or something like that, you may want food that makes you feel heavier as opposed to lighter. Or maybe you want something lighter, based off of your metabolism and you're working in the hot sun, and you want like more smoothies or something like that. It's like really unique. It's
Yeah.
really unique to your situation and how the food is making you feel, what you have access to, and all of that. Texture for me is really important,
Mm.
and
Yep.
that was one of the things like in raw foods to navigate because a lot of the recipes are very wet. I
Mhm.
tend to like foods dry, right? Which is why I love me some salad with a light dressing.
Mm.
Some people like some of the, I remember like in Los Angeles, there's this health food store called Air One, and they have some raw meals already prepared, and they have like this pad thai, and it's like more sauce than noodle, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm sure it tastes good, but I could never eat that. Yet there's a health food store in LA called Lassen's, and they make a like kelp noodle. I think it's like a Caesar type of noodle thing, right? Where
Mm.
they have it's and I think it's an almond cashew mix cheese base, and they have hemp seeds, delicious.
Mm.
And the difference with this is like it's when you look at it, it's drier looking, but it to me it tastes so good. And the other one, I just can't even buy it and try it because it's so wet, you know? And so because I eat with all five senses, you know, what it looks like, what it smells like, the texture of it, all that stuff matters, right? So you
Yeah.
have to find what works for you.
Yeah. Great points. Very well said. Um, Music Monster Man said it's it's really hard when you try to step up as a role model and educate others and they just don't want to hear it. What do you think about that?
That's fine. Not everybody wants to hear all the time.
Right.
Right? And but there doesn't mean they'll never wanna hear. Like, when I started my, vegan journey, like and of course, you know, you start your vegan journey, then you start to evangelize because that is
Yes.
just it's just the path that we all get on in the
Yep.
beginning, and then you learn, like, it's just not worth the time and energy, but
Yep.
I remember in those days, like, getting calls from certain family members, and they were telling me about the health of other people in the family. And I would share books, I would send things. Some folks don't want to hear it. Some
Mhm.
folks take action. They have difficulty and they probably give up. They don't know where to go and then they trip up. At least they know you're a resource. Because I know for me and my family, there are folks on my email list. They don't talk to me in person about their health, but they're on my email list and I see them opening and clicking buttons,
Yeah.
you know?
Same. Same.
So I know they're watching and listening. And then I
Mm.
hear from other people, oh, you know, so and so went plant based. And like, maybe it was me, maybe it wasn't me. And that's the thing, what the one of the most valuable things I learned in my coaching certification is do not look to your family members to be supportive of you and what you're doing and what you have to say.
Yeah.
These people, I'm like out of the family, like I'm part of the youngest in the group, right? So I mentioned how many grandkids there were. I'm part of that last set of grandkids in the youngest, you know,
Mm.
like probably the youngest five. So most of these people see me in diapers, you know. They're not really, it's hard to kind of convince these folks that you actually know anything, right? Because
Yeah.
you're still young Sam or young Matt in their eyes, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Um, and that's okay, you know. But when you are living in a vibrant manner, and it's not enough, like even in the vegan community, because let me tell you, 2020 and 2021 was a shock to me about the vegan community. The
Agreed.
conversations I saw happening, I was like, what? What? You know, like you are not going to win friends by being what's the word? Negative and nasty. Like
Yeah.
you have to healing is not just about the food. You have to get your mind right.
Yeah.
Like, and that's where I talked about relating, empathy. Empathy is a huge one. Like this is a muscle. Like if you don't have it, build it, you know? If you're seeing folks not doing a certain thing, first do some self-reflection. Are you doing it? Don't hold other people to a standard you're not holding yourself. That's number one. And number two, why do you think they're struggling? You know, like I said in the example of like my cousin, like, you know, when she passed, it was so rough because there's like, you realize too, as an adult, it's so hard to connect with people. And even in a big family, not all of us are the same, you know? So you have your few that you really connect with. That's like your people, you know?
Yep.
And this cousin in particular, she was my person. She was so cool. And it's like, why would she choose alcohol over her family, like over being here, you know?
Yeah.
It had me thinking about my own addictions. Like, what do I need to give up that I haven't given up? You know, can I relate to life just being so hard that you need an affordable, accessible crutch? Yes, I can. You know, I've lived enough life where I understand life could be hard, you know? And
Yeah.
at this point, at 41, she was already a new grandmother, even. So she's lived a lot of life, you know? Folks are dealing with stuff. Like, try to get yourself into that mindset and journal about it and read what you're journaling to help you kind of like dig in to step in their shoes really, really. And that will kind of help you figure out how to maneuver. Ultimately, we want to be love, right? Folks in the raw food, we talk about love and light, right? We got to be it in order for it to manifest outside of us.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say.
Yeah. Completely agree. And I know for me, I had friends, none of my, I was the only person that I knew, like that was getting on this path. And my friends would argue with me that I couldn't get enough protein, that, you can't just live on plants. And years later, I had those same friends come back to me asking how to transition to a plant-based diet. So, you know, just what Samantha said. I mean, people are going to argue. People are, because you're in a way, you're threatening their way of life. You're threatening what they feel connected to, who, like, that's their identity a lot of times.
Hmm.
Food is so intertwined with people's identities, and so when you challenge what they're eating, you're challenging who they are. You're challenging, their culture or their upbringing. Their what connected them with people that they love. So, when you start shining light on some things that aren't comfortable for people, they're gonna push back. It's just something that happens, and as Samantha said, you gotta be as loving as you can in those interactions, and you don't have to. Don't be worried about convincing anybody of anything. You just be the
Hmm.
example and do what you know is best for you, and eventually, a lot of times, people come around. So, you know,
And I can admit I have gotten into some heated arguments, not even
yeah,
debates. Like,
same.
honestly, because I remember one in particular, with this particular cousin who passed, and we're at the repast. And all the food that they laid out was all bread and meat, like not a green thing on the table. And my mom and I are there like in shock because we literally just lost our 41-year-old, you know, and sleep apnea is very much linked. Yeah, you can look skinny and get sleep apnea, right? It's not just about being overweight or obese. Um, However, uh healthy nutrition plays a huge role in this. And the fact that there was nothing green in a room full of adults, it really shocked me because I was like, I wasn't raised like that. We at least had some vegetables growing up. And so my mom and I, we decided to fast and it was okay. I coached her through it. I was like, it's fine. And even now, this is like the thing, you fast and you pray because all you can do is pray for these people. Because from my perspective, it's like you're watching your loved ones slowly poison themselves with food stuff,
Yep.
and there's not much you can do about it because they're on an addiction cycle that takes time to resolve. And you know this, Matt, right, from your own personal history, but like
Yep.
you cannot resolve an addiction unless you first see that you are addicted to something that's not good for you, right?
Right.
That they have to come to an understanding. And I remember being at the repast and I'm talking to my brother and he said something because he's always joking around. He said something in jest, like, ridiculing plant-based, whatever. And I just went, because I was already triggered. Like I had this traumatic thing with my grandma. My grandma was like the first love in life I lost. And now I'm losing another cousin I'll never get to hug and talk to again. And he's coming at me with this. And it was like, gosh, you're so ignorant, And
Mm-hmm.
of course, I love my brother, but he triggered me and my dragon came out. And it was like, and it just, you know, and this will happen, right? But all I could say is just pray about it. This is where the spirituality comes into play because you're gonna have fallen outs. In my large family, there's always a group that's not talking at any given time,
Yeah.
but time heals all wounds, and so you just got to pray about it. Pray for you, pray for them. Pray God gives you the right words at the right time.
Yep.
Pray they come to their senses before something serious happens.
Yeah.
And if that is their path, that's their path. Because ultimately, we don't really have control over everything, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah.
Um, yeah. So it's let's see. We're at 12:43 my time, so 1:43 Eastern time. So long show. I appreciate
Yeah.
Samantha for for hanging out with us for all this time. So we'll take one last question. Carl asked question about dementia. Go. He said, best raw foods to prevent dementia. Is it fact or myth that consuming coconut oil can help with dementia? Have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't do oil. You need a healthy cardiovascular system in order to have a healthy brain. Um the only thing I could think of is like omega 3 fats you need to be consuming on a daily basis. But when it comes to oil, I think the preference should be with the material, with the fiber. If you're using coconut oil to make like a dessert or whatever, fine. It's not gonna kill you, I don't think. But I don't think oil is necessarily that helpful either. For someone like myself who tends to love food and likes to eat a lot, oil doesn't make sense,
Hmm.
you know, because I'm gonna hit my caloric allotment, my energy needs for the day really fast. And then what's gonna end up happening is I will be consuming way more energy than I'm expending. And that does pack on. Like I know in the raw food world, folks say eat everything, you won't gain weight. And there may be some truth to it. I don't feel like I overate on raw foods when I was 100% raw, but also at that time I was very active. I had a brick and mortar food business. I was lifting up heavy boxes of produce, like, and making deliveries. So I was active even with NEAT, right? Which is basically like the natural burning of your body when you're doing light activity, walking around, standing up, washing dishes. I was basically on my feet all the time and eating raw, and eating raw gourmet. But I wasn't overeating. And like with a lot of us who are sitting in front of computers all day working, and you're working from home, I know like I'm right near the kitchen. I'll just eat and eat and eat, even if it's
Yeah.
raw. And what happened during the pandemic, yes, I was eating cooked food. But I also was eating a lot, and I gained weight. Um, which, nothing negative really happened from the weight necessarily. I did uh go through some low mood periods during that time. Of course, there was a lot happening politically and socially. So all of it, we're not living in a bubble. All of this stuff is working collectively, but I would just be mindful. I wouldn't demonize coconut oil, right? Listen to your body, but anything that's healthy for your and clean for your cardiovascular system is going to highly benefit your brain. And we're not talking enough about omega 3 fatty acids, which we should be consuming on a daily basis. Coconut oil is not essential, and that's not something that's part of my regular diet.
Gotcha. That all sounds great to me. All right. Well, I was scrolling through the chat. I see there's some great questions that we're unfortunately not going to get to, but Music Monster Man did say, "Who's the oldest living raw vegan?" I think the oldest I know of is Dr. Fred Bishi. I think he's 95 or 96 or something now. So yeah, but yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's I'm sure there's others, but
There
I
could
can't
be
think of them.
others we just don't know. Not all of them are online and
Right.
prominent talking about it, but
Yep. Agreed.
yeah.
All right. Well, let's do the quick scroll through here, guys. Sorry, I'm still weeks have gone by. I still haven't got my automatic name picker updated on this thing, but here we go. Let's see who wins the free gifts. And Tessa. Tessa is the winner. Tessa, it's been a while since you've won one of these. So congratulations, Tessa. Send me an email at matt@myrawintuition.com, and you can get one of my ebooks. If you might have all of them already, but you will get you'll get a free coupon for Daily Green Boost if you're interested in that. And then you can go to Samantha's website and get that free digestion recipe book. And so, yeah, congratulations. And thank you, Samantha, again for your amazing insights and wisdom that you shared with us today, and for spending this extra long show with us to make sure we got everything in there.
Yes, thank you so much. Sorry, at this point, I'm very much long-winded, so
I love
thank
it.
you.
Yeah, no,
But
I
thanks for
love it.
having me on. It was fun.
Thank you. All right. Well, guys, tune in next week. There's no game show today, but actually next week, I think, Samantha, you're on the game show. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, next week. So there will be a game show next week after the health show. So tune in for that, and it's going to be a good show. It's going to be a good show. So thank you again.